Hello and welcome. Tonight, at least 13 people killed and several others wounded as twin explosions rock Maiduguri, the Borno state capital. President Muhammadu Buhari meets with service chiefs on resumption at Aso Rock Villa, says he met an empty treasury. UNHCR says federal government to increase attention on internally displaced persons to reduce influx of refugees in neighboring countries. And Greece proposes new taxes on businesses and the wealthy as part of plans to end the deadlock on its debt crisis, amid hopes of a deal this week.
And on business news tonight, Nigeria Liquefied Natural Gas Company pays $1.6 billion income and tertiary education tax to government.
On sports news tonight, undefeated world welterweight champion Floyd Mayweather dashes British contender Amir Khan's hopes of getting a fight with him.
We begin tonight in Maiduguri, the Borno state capital, where at least 13 people have been confirmed killed following twin explosions set off by suicide bombers suspected to be members of the Boko Haram sect. The explosions were said to have occurred at about the same time on Baga Road, leaving at least 30 other people injured. Eyewitnesses told Channels Television that the attacks were carried out by two female suicide bombers. The first bomber was said to have detonated her device a few meters away from the market, while her accomplice set off hers inside the market just before the late afternoon prayers. Hospital authorities say most of the victims were women and children. The attack is coming a few days after the dusk to dawn curfew was relaxed in the state for the period of Ramadan. 14 people were killed and over 40 injured last week following blasts from explosive devices said to have been abandoned by suspected Boko Haram members in Monguno Local Council, also in Borno State. The incident occurred barely 24 hours after two soldiers and a policeman were killed by a landmine along Damboa Road, about 35 kilometers away from the Borno state capital. Meanwhile, President Muhammadu Buhari has vowed to crush Boko Haram and has secured the support of the G7 members in this regard. The president has also given the assurance that with the implementation of the agreement by leaders of the Lake Chad Basin Commission on combating terrorism in the sub-region, the Boko Haram sect will be routed. President Buhari recently demonstrated this commitment by ordering the release of $21 million to help in the operations of the multinational joint task force of the Lake Chad Basin countries. And as he settles in at the presidential villa to commence the real task of governance and tackle the ongoing insurgency head-on, the president has ordered the immediate removal of all non-essential military checkpoints across Nigeria. The decision, which forms part of the outcome of the security meeting the president held with the service chiefs in the presidential villa, is aimed at freeing more troops for the operations in the northeast. Briefing State House correspondents after the meeting, the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Defense, Malam Ismaila Aliyu, said the federal government is poised to implement the decisions of the Lake Chad Basin Commission. State House correspondent Chukuma Onwekusi reports.
Safe to say there is no time to waste. President Buhari on resumption here in the presidential villa since his inauguration on May 29, among other issues on this first day, scheduled a meeting with service chiefs. But before they came in, Vice President Yemi Osinbajo arrives early. He heads straight to the president's office for a meeting that also featured some of the president's senior aides. The meeting with service chiefs, which followed immediately after, lasted for over 4 hours, after which State House correspondents sought to know the outcome from the Chief of Defense Staff, who refers them to the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Defense.
No, okay, talk to the Permanent Secretary.
And from the Permanent Secretary, 3 things are important to the President: the implementation of decisions of the Lake Chad Basin Commission and movement of the command center.
on the implementation of decisions raised during the Lake Chad Basin Commission. Nigerian armed forces are very ready. We have briefed him. But one most interesting thing about it is that we are going out much happier because he has shown to us that he is still a soldier. He has updated and enriched our strategic plans, and we are happy that we are going out very rich. Second item that we also did was to also the movement of the command center to the northeast. We have briefed him on how far we have reached on that.
On what is going to be done different from what has been done in the past and the removal of military on the roads?
Yes, what is going to be done differently from what has been done, because now that, as I say, we have come as a united front. We have Chad, we have Cameroon, we have Benin, we have Niger. We have all strategized, and we are coming up with one type of strategy that we're going to address the Boko Haram. Unlike before that, you could recall that the Chadian president at that time said Nigerian armed forces were not cooperating. Now we are going with one force.
So are you discussing the change of the service chiefs? Is there such a...
No, that did not come.
So are you aware that Nigerians are passing through serious hardship in Abuja, particularly regarding this military operations in terms of...
Well, let me also tell you what the director Mr. President gave, is that he has instructed the Chief of Defense Staff to get the Chief of Army and the Inspector General of Police to remove all the military men along the roads across the country.
The president appears to be talking tough, and the federal government believes that with what has come out of the meeting with the service chiefs, Nigerians can rest assured that Boko Haram will soon be a thing of the past. Chukwuma Onwekusi, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, the president has given a hint of a major challenge he may face, as he has admitted that his administration met a virtually empty treasury with debts of millions of dollars. President Muhammadu Buhari was addressing State House correspondents on the first day of his resumption of office in the presidential villa. The president, who solicited the support of the Nigerian press in the task ahead, pointed out that it is a disgrace that some Nigerian states and federal workers are complaining of non-payment of salaries.
I hope we are starting, and this culture developed of 100 days is bringing so much pressure. Even when one assumes with a treasury which is virtually empty, with debts, billions of dollars, with state workers and some of the federal workers not even being paid their salaries, is such a disgrace for Nigeria. I think Nigeria should be in a position to at least pay its workers. This bad mismanagement that we find ourselves in, we really need your help to protect us from people before they march on us. Thank you very much.
The United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees has called on the Nigerian government to increase attention on internally displaced persons in order to reduce the number of refugees in neighboring West African countries. There are over 1.5 million internally displaced persons in Nigeria since the unrest in the northeast intensified 4 years ago, and thousands of them have fled to neighboring countries as refugees.
An estimated 20,000 Nigerians have fled the northeast, seeking refuge in neighboring countries in the last 4 years. This is in addition to the millions of internally displaced persons, many of whom are women and children living in camps across the country. Participants at this World Day for Refugees say this year's celebration is a call for sober reflection.
About 1.5 million people have become displaced. Therefore, the theme of the 2015 World Refugees Day, refugees, ordinary people living in extraordinary times, is apt, and it calls for sober reflection.
The United Nations also calls on the government to increase its attention on IDPs so as to reduce the numbers of refugees in neighboring countries.
We have in Nigeria right now more than 1.5 million displaced persons.
These are potential refugees. These are refugees in the making. If we fail to provide them with what they need when they are still within the territory of Nigeria, they really will or may find their way out to neighboring countries, as others, close to 200,000, have already done.
According to the UN Agency for Refugees, the international community should stop paying lip service to the plights of refugees.
It is time to stop hiding behind misleading words. Richer nations must acknowledge refugees for the victims they are, fleeing from wars they were unable to prevent or stop. For me, the choice is clear. Either allow the cancer of forced displacement to spread untreated, or manage the crisis together.
There are about 2,000 refugees in Nigeria, foreigners who have fled their countries because of war and other civil unrest. This is in addition to the over 1.5 million that are internally displaced owing to the unrest in the northeast.
In part two, after the break, court dismisses 26.7 billion naira criminal suit against former bank PHB Managing Director Mr. Francis Atuche. Please stay with us.